Episode 9 of Ship of the Week. By the 1880s, White Star Line's Oceanic-class steamships were beginning to show their age, and simply could not compete with Cunard and Inman Line ships in size or speed. Cunard's Umbria and Etruria, for example, could make 19.5 knots, several knots faster than what White Star had at their disposal. The line turned to their Belfast contractor Harland and Wolff and ordered a pair of twin-screw express steamers capable of a service speed of 20 knots. They were to bear the names Teutonic and Majestic. The Teutonic class were to be far larger than anything yet operated by White Star Line, and they stretched to 580 feet in length, displacing nearly 10,000 tons. White Star did not possess the resources to finance the sisters themselves, so the British government agreed to subsidize their construction under the condition that they be available for requisition as light merchant cruisers in the event of a war. Laid down in 1887 and launched in January of 1889, Teutonic was the first ship built for White Star without provisions to carry sails. The liner's increased size allowed her to become the first White Star ship to carry the three-class system that would become a staple of the immigrant era of steamship design, possessing accommodation for first, second, and third-class passengers. Her first-class public rooms were splendid for the time. The dining saloon was capped with a domed well that soared 2 decks in height. The library featured a skylight that doubled as a light shaft, carrying daylight deeper into the ship. The smokeroom, always a bit hazy in the evenings, featured cozy seating, ornate paneling, and woodwork, and various paintings depicting significant moments in nautical history. The geometrically paneled main staircase, in addition to being a thoroughfare through the ship, also carried light to the lower decks. And this first-class stateroom shows how, despite decor tastes evolving somewhat in the intervening 20 years, much of the fittings and arrangement of Teutonic's accommodation would have been recognizable to passengers sailing on the future Olympic-class ships. Like the Oceanic class before her, Teutonic's third-class accommodation was segregated to keep single men away from single women and families. Handed over to White Star in July of 1889, she was just in time for the Spithead Naval Review, which began on August 5th. Attended by Queen Victoria and Kaiser Wilhelm II, the review was the largest assemblage of naval power in history at the time, and countless of Britain's great liners were present as well. The Prince of Wales hosted the Kaiser for a tour of Teutonic, which still bore the 4.7-inch guns she was fitted with to meet Admiralty merchant cruiser specifications. The German monarch is often cited to have leaned into an aide and remarked, in reference to the ship, "We must have some of these." What became of that sense of admiration will undoubtedly appear in future videos, because few knew it yet, but while the naval arms race in the early 20th century gained steam, a parallel ocean liner arms race between Germany and Britain would produce some very famous names. Once Teutonic, Majestic, and the slightly older Britannic and Germanic were all in regular service, White Star finally had the regular weekly Liverpool to New York express service it had always intended to establish. Teutonic was incredibly popular for her comfort and speed, regularly putting on friendly races with the Inman Line steamer SS City of New York. She took the blue ribbon for the Atlantic record from her sister Majestic in August of 1890, the last White Star ship to hold the prize. Like many large liners, Teutonic briefly carried troops during the Boer War in 1900. The following year, she was struck with what was likely a rogue wave, and while 2 lookouts were carried out of the crow's nest by the wave, they were safely deposited on the deck, and the ship continued on her way. This photograph depicts quartermasters and officers on the liner's open navigating bridge shortly before the turn of the century. When White Star's express operations shifted from Liverpool to Southampton, Teutonic and her running mates, Majestic and the new Oceanic and Adriatic, sailed that route until relieved in one fell swoop by the new superliner Olympic in 1911. No longer vital to maintaining express service, Teutonic was transferred to Dominion Line. Like White Star, Dominion was a subsidiary of J.P. Morgan's International Mercantile Marine. In this role, Teutonic operated on the Canadian route. In October of 1913, in heavy fog, about 200 miles off Newfoundland, Teutonic narrowly avoided colliding with an iceberg, passing within a few dozen feet of it, following emergency evasive maneuvers, with her passengers showing great appreciation for her crew. Assigned to the 10th Cruiser Squadron in the First World War, Teutonic was fitted with 6-inch guns, and her speed allowed her to serve as a convoy escort ship. It probably helped her survive the war. She was sold for scrap in Germany in 1921.